Welcome. I am Adina Wancha and I guide high achieving men and women create extraordinary lives and loving ecstatic relationships. The intention of this podcast is to empower both men and women when it comes to life, dating, relationships, and intimacy. I believe that by both men and women being healthy, powerful, and loving, we can be in thriving romantic partnerships and create a better world together. If this is something you resonate with, then please keep listening. Bringing a new life into this world is a huge responsibility and blessing. However, not everybody makes the decision to become a parent consciously. In many cases, it just happens. And not to say that things can turn out alright, because in some cases it can. However, it's easier both for the parents and for the child to come and grow into a harmonious family who is ready for this long term commitment and has consciously prepared for it. So let's go even deeper into this topic. And for this, I prepared for you 5 questions to help you determine if you are ready to have children. So let's get into them. Question number 1. Do you want to have children? Not everybody wants to have children, and that is okay. There have always been people who didn't have children, and there will always be people who will not have children. Not every human being needs to reproduce. If you do not want to have children, then own this and inform the people you are dating about this if you are currently dating. Don't have a baby just because you think you should, because your parents pressure you, because society says you need children to feel fulfilled, because the person you are dating or the person you are married to wants children. Having or raising a baby is one of the most serious and challenging commitments you'll ever make. You can leave a job you don't like anymore. You can leave your spouse, but you can't really leave your baby. I mean, you can because there are people who abandon their children, and in many cases, that is better for the child. But would you be able to have a baby and then leave them to be raised by someone else? In most cases, the answer will be no. So, really give some thought and be honest with yourself. If you are to bring a new life to this planet, are you willing to make the required investments and sacrifices for this child to become a healthy and functional adult? And of course, there are cases of people who don't want children, but then they get pregnant and everything works out. They love their child and they become good parents. But generally, if you do not want to have a child and you still have one part of you will be unhappy and resentful, which your child will feel. There are people in this world who weren't desired by their parents, and now they've become adults who feel they are unworthy of love and that their life makes no sense. As you may be aware by now, most of trauma is created in childhood. And if, on the other hand, you want to have children, also ask yourself if you also want to be a parent. Because almost anyone can have a baby, but not anyone can also be a good parent. There is a big difference between having a child and being a good parent to that child. Being a parent means that you will invest some of your financial, mental, emotional, and spiritual resources to raise this child to become a healthy, happy, and productive adult. Children need a lot of attention and energy poured into them, especially in the first 3 5 years of life. So be honest with yourself. Are you willing to invest your time, energy, and other types of resources into your child? Question number two. Are you happily married? The optimal situation for a child to grow in is having both a mother and a father. Evolutionarily speaking, children were raised by a whole tribe, their mother and father, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, their cousins. Now, most children are raised by only their mother and father. So we went from having a support system formed of 10 or 20 people to one that includes only two people. And then to not even have two people and have only one, a child who lives in a single parent home will always have some deficits. No matter how much a single mother or a single father will try, they will not be able to compensate for the lack of the other parent. Mothers and fathers bring different energies and skills into a child's life. For example, from my mother, I learned how to help people and be kind. And from my father, I learned how to be fierce and pursue my dreams. And I said married because being in a relationship with someone is not enough. A relationship is not equal to a marriage. People break up all the time. But generally, when a person gets married, they don't do that thinking that they will get a divorce. Marriage is a commitment, a relationship, not so much. And I said happily married because not all people who are married are also happy. And why would you want to bring a child into this world if you and your relationship are not in a good place? Why? What makes you think that a baby will solve all your problems? What makes you think that a baby will fix the problems you are having in your marriage? A baby generally puts a lot of stress on relationships, and even good relationships can become shaky in the first years after a baby is born. Why? For various reasons. First of all, a baby needs a lot of his mother attention and energy, which makes the mother have less energy and attention to give to the father. And this can create conflicts between the two parents. Also, a baby will keep both of you up at night. And tired people have less resources to be emotionally regulated. So, yes, conflicts can and might occur more often. Also, parents can have conflicts about how they raise their baby, meaning one parent can be more attentive to the baby's needs, while the other may have more of a Spartan style and insist on leaving the baby cry. That is why it is important to discuss your perspective on raising a child during dating or before having a child. So, if you as a couple are not in a good place, first do the work to get there and then bring a child into this world. This is the responsible thing to do. And know that the couples that have babies when their marriage is in shambles and end up staying together are more exceptions than the rule. So don't think that because you heard of one or two cases where the baby strengthened the marriage, this will also be your case. Because in most cases, people divorce or break up, and which causes a major trauma for the baby. If you are not happily married and you desire children, then first find a mature and responsible partner, get married, and then have children. A child needs both a loving mother and a loving father to become a stable and thriving adult. Question number three. Are you mentally healthy and emotionally stable? Children are not rational beings in the first years of life. They are more emotional beings. They need a lot of emotional connection and support. If the parents are not in a good place mentally and are struggling emotionally, how do you think a baby will grow into a thriving adult? In the first 5 years of life, children create the foundation of their emotional development. This is when they learn how to regulate their emotions and talk about their feelings. But if their parents aren't in a good emotional place, let alone self aware and capable of self regulate, who will teach the child to deal with their emotions? Who will do this? This is what a mother's job is. As a mother, you need to have the capacity to understand first yourself, to be able to self regulate, and then to teach this to your child. If you are an emotional mess, which women are, do not bring a child into your craziness. Take responsibility and take care first of your well-being and then have a baby. This is not to say that the father shouldn't be mentally healthy and emotionally stable, because of course he needs to be. The father is first and foremost the protector and the provider for the family. When a man is not in a good place, he might turn against his wife and his children and become an abuser. Or he might just not be involved in raising the child, which the child will perceive as an abandonment. So, to sum up, both the mother and the father need to be mentally healthy and emotionally stable. And this doesn't mean that you won't get angry or emotionally affected by stuff that happens in life. This just means that you understand that you are teaching your child some very important life skills and that you do your best to be in a stable place yourself. And taking responsibility means acknowledging when you have a problem and getting help for it. I find it crazy that so many parents want their children to start reading when they are 3 years old, but they don't pay too much attention to the child's emotional well being. The first years of life are not meant for the child to become a scholar. They are meant for the child's emotional development so they become harmonious adults. Question number 4. As a father, are you financially stable and ready to financially support your family? And as a mother, are you ready to stay home with the child in the first 5 years? If you're a woman and if you are thinking of having a child and then going back to work after only a few months or a year, I would strongly advise you to reconsider this. And why? Well, the first 5 years of a child's life are crucial to their health, well being, development, and overall trajectory in their lives in various ways. In the first 5 years of life, children's brains develop connection faster than at any other time in their life. A child's health and well being before birth and during the first 3 years of life affect all future learning, behavior, and health. This period is the most sensitive for a child's development, brain, and body. Ladies, your purpose as a mother is to stay home with your child in the first 5 years. So this child develops normally from an emotional and mental point of view. The first 5 years of a child's life is critical to their well being and success later in life. Your baby needs to be physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually taken care of. How will you be able to do this if you are not married and if you do not have a husband to support you? And not all mothers will be able to stay at home for 5 years, but at least The first 2, 3 years should be spent with the baby for the baby's well being, because this is when the child forms their emotional attachment. And if the mother is not there, the baby will not form a secure attachment, which will cause many problems later in life with their relationships and overall happiness. Many people today do not have a secure attachment because their mothers weren't physically and emotionally there for them. Attachment styles stem from the work of the psychologist Mary Ainsworth. She observed how babies reacted when their mom left the room, as well as how they responded when she returned into the room. And based on her observations, she concluded that there are four attachment styles children can have. And these are secure attachment, anxious insecure attachment, anxious avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. And Ainsworth found that secure children feel distress when their caregiver left the room, but they felt comforted upon returning. On the other hand, anxious, insecure children become upset before the caregiver left and clingy when the caregiver came back. Anxious, avoidant children weren't upset by their caregiver's absence, nor were they delighted when their mother re entered the room. And the disorganized attachment applies to the children who are physically and emotionally abused. And this type of attachment makes it very difficult for children to feel comforted by caregivers, even when caregivers aren't hurtful. So the attachment styles are set very early in life and can impact a person's relationship satisfaction in adulthood. For example, adults whose parents cared for the safety needs by providing food and shelter, but neglected the emotional needs of the child, are more likely to develop an anxious avoidant attachment style. When you, as a mother, soothe the child and attend immediately to the child's needs, you also teach the child how to regulate their emotion. And if you, as a mother, are not there when your baby needs you, the baby will be more predisposed to emotional turmoil, tantrums, acting out their emotions because they haven't learned how to regulate them. So, ladies, if you are listening to this and desire to have one or more children, make sure you'll have the possibility of staying home with your baby in the first 3, 5 years. Generally, the first 8 years of life affect the development of the brain's architecture, which provides the foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. A strong foundation helps children develop the skills they need to become well functioning adults. Now, not everybody will be able to stay home for 8 years, but do your best to create the conditions to spend the 3, 5 years with your child. And, gentlemen, ask yourself if you can support your family financially so the mother can stay home with the children for the first 3, 5 years of the child's life. In many countries, mothers receive financial help from the government, and that helps a lot the family. However, in other countries, the government doesn't financially help the mothers, which I find very disturbing and evil. So, if you live in a country that hates mothers and baby and doesn't help them, can you, as a father, financially support your family for the first 3, 5 years? And this doesn't mean that you need to pay for holidays and luxury items. This means that you need to provide the basic living necessities like shelter, food, medical services, and clothing. If you cannot do this, maybe it's not the best time to have a baby. Why? Because as I previously mentioned, the first years of life are critical to the child's development, and children need a lot of attention, love, and support from their mothers. This is an investment that will pay off later in your child's life when they will become adults that you'll be proud of. I think we can all agree that a person who has a good foundation from home will have an easier and more fulfilling life than someone who was raised in a dysfunctional family or had many lacks in their childhood. Your child doesn't need the most expensive crib, stroller, or clothes. What your child needs most is a healthy, present, and loving mother and father. And question number 5: can you and your spouse agree on how to educate and raise your child? Men and women are different. The mother is generally more concerned by how a child feels, and the father is generally more concerned about what a child does. Generally, the mother is the outer expression of the feminine energy. So, what a baby learns from their mother is more related to feelings, emotions, empathy, compassion, rest, play, intuition, creativity, nurturing, collaboration, while what the child learns from the father is more related to logic, confidence, focus, responsibility, discipline, achieving, competition, interdependence. And of course, that both men and women have both feminine and masculine attributes. And sometimes the mother is the one who is more ambition and goal driven, and the father is the one who is more compassionate. What is important is that as parents, you need to understand that you need to become a team and instill in your child both the feminine and the masculine characteristic. So your child becomes a whole, happy, and successful adult. As a team, you need to discuss and agree upon how you are going to do this. Also, you'll need to accept that the mother will do things differently from the father as you are trying to teach your children different skills. And let me give you an example. When I was a child, I wasn't very good at math. It was very hard for me to understand it. Well, not much has changed ever since, but I don't use math as much now. And when this happened, my mother used to get angry with me, and a few times she slapped me because I couldn't do the homework the teacher had given us. Now, when my father learned about this, he wasn't happy with my mother because my father's perspective about school and physical punishment was that beating me wouldn't solve the problem. What would solve the problem was getting help on becoming better at math, which meant that I had to do some private tutoring, which I did in the end. So my father never laid a hand on me. He never believed in this method of discipline. He always explained to me why it's better to do one thing and not another thing and what the consequences of my actions would be. My mother, on the other hand, thought if she slapped me, I would get better at math, which made no sense. Anyways, although my mother and father had different styles, they reached common ground and did what was best for me. And this is what you and your spouse should also be able to do. Irrespective of your opinion and parenting style, you need to do what's best for the child, not what comes easier to you. A child doesn't need too many material things. What a child needs most is a stable home, a nurturing mother, a protective father, to be understood, encouraged, supported, hugged, educated. Not all people who make babies are also good parents. Making a baby is relatively easy. Raising a child into a harmonious adult is not. My invitation for you is to take a really good look at yourself and your life and at your partner if you have one, and be honest with yourself. Are you ready to be a mom or a dad? And if the answer is no, then what do you need to improve in order to be ready? And if the answer is yes, I hope God blesses you and your partner with one or more babies when the time is right. I believe that people should consciously prepare for marriage as well as for becoming parents by healing their emotional wounds from their own childhood and previous relationships, becoming emotionally stable and mentally healthy, creating the financial resources to provide a safe and stable home for their future family. These are some of the things we will work on together in my one to one coaching container. If you resonate with me and you're serious about creating your best life, you can find the details for my coaching programs in the description box below. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you found it helpful, please share it with one or more friends. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. I appreciate your time and energy, and I hope to meet you again in my next episode. Bye!